So the last several videos, we've been kind of exploring the variability, if you want to call it, the flexibility you have in terms of trying to apply these various spiritual and manifesting principles into your life. And this is what we often talk about, how flexible we can be in terms of this stuff compared to how often in the box we tend to be. It seems like we get so intoxicated or enraptured with certain techniques and ways to improve our life that we often forget that we don't have to do a certain technique a certain way each day, or we don't have to be so set in our ways. Seems like almost part of the modern human condition to think that we're going to have a certain formula that's always going to work for us, and that there's a certain thing that's, you take this one medication and it's going to fix everything type thing. And it just doesn't work when it comes to improving your life always. There's certain routines we can fall into that are very, very helpful. And obviously having habits that make you feel better is a hugely helpful, productive thing to enact and do in your life. But at the same time, we have to understand that a lot of these far out manifesting concepts the techniques are interesting, but it's not really about the technique. It's about you. It's about what will make you feel better inwardly, and also what will make you more expectant and certain that your life is going to improve, and perhaps improve in a specific way if that's what you want. Because if you think and feel as if things are changing positively, and you think a certain thing is going to come into your life and improve, like a relationship or a health issue or a financial issue or whatever the issue may be, if you think it will improve and you expect for it to improve, if you genuinely expect it to improve, in all likelihood it's going to improve or shift or change. The difficult thing for almost everybody is to raise that sense of expectation, to get that sense of expectation. And that's not just, there's not something that, it's not a pill. There's not just one thing for most of us that's going to make us feel expectant. We utilize all these techniques to feel expectant, to increase our certainty that what we want is going to happen. But what you'll find is that what works for you one year might not work for you the next year in terms of feeling expectant. What works for you 1 month ago might not work for you today. And what works for you, what worked for you last week or yesterday even, might not work for you right now. So we do need this flexibility and this openness. And in my opinion, it really helps to kind of monitor how you feel, how expectant or certain you feel about, attaining a certain thing in your life or feeling better. That's the benefit of something like the success indicator that W. Clement Stone always talked about. And there's many variations of success indicators. But I'll put a link above the playlist of the success indicator videos we've done, because monitoring your daily behavior is very valuable in this way. But when you monitor your daily behavior, that's not a technique in and of itself. It's to hopefully get you more aware of of where you're at in terms of how expectant, certain, and how you feel. I hope some of you are following what I'm saying here. With all this being said, I do think a commonality in so much of this stuff, in terms of feeling better and expecting better things to happen to us, comes back to looking at how we feel, and specifically looking at fear, at how fearful we are. I think that's an underlying commonality to a lot of this, is facing fear. Because of a lot of things that we want in our life that we do not have, we are fearful about not having them. So if we can look at that, we can then work with ourselves in a more effective way to actually get what we want. When we stop being so fearful about not having what we want, when we take the charge out of that fear and learn that that fear might even be there, to direct us into to show us something, basically, about being more present, about feeling better right now. When we work with the fear, then it's easier usually for things we want to come into our life. This is also why so much of this work, this imaginative work, it works well when we feel relaxed. Because when you feel relaxed, you're not fearful. You can't be relaxed and full of fear at the same time. At least unless you're in a really odd situation, which is not going to be you most of the time. Most of the time when we feel fearful, it's because we're projecting a negative imagined future onto something. Or we're thinking negatively, imaginatively about the past. When you feel relaxed, that's not happening naturally. When you feel relaxed and calm, relatively calm, you're not worrying about the future. And you're much more capable of thinking positively about what you want in the future and feeling expected. Because you're relaxed and not fearful. But, most of us have trouble being as relaxed as we want. And that's what all this stuff comes back to again a lot of the time. Learning to be more relaxed in the moment. This is a great car video. The leaf blowers are blowing in the background. I don't know if you can hear them. The sunlight's right in my face. This is what it's all about. This is why we do car videos. So, in regards to fear, I think a lot of us, certainly myself, have benefited from the great law of attraction, law of assumption teachers of the last 100 years or so talking about fear. I remember when I started the podcast, a lot of the early episodes were just about facing fear, and I was talking about Joseph Murphy. Joseph Murphy's got that great chapter in The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, just about facing fear. And a lot of that book is just about facing fear. But as wonderful as these, LOA type teachers are in terms of facing fear, it's the really, we shouldn't just look at them as people who give advice in terms of facing fear in regards to manifesting a better life. Often books that have nothing to, seemingly nothing to do about manifesting, talk about facing fear and how to manifest better things in your life just as well, if not better. For instance, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. We made a podcast episode about that. I'll put a link above to that. That book, Richard Dotz talks about this. Richard Dotz is like one of the most important books he ever read or reread, or I don't know. I guess read. One of the most important books he read was How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. That's the book more than any other that helped him manifest huge changes in his life. And that's because, like we just were referencing, worry, fear, is what screws us up from manifesting better things so much of the time. So if you can figure out a way to worry less and start living more fulfillingly, more relaxed inwardly in your day-to-day life, you're going to feel better. And again, a lot of the podcasts, a lot of Law of Attraction Explored, what we cover in there is just about facing fear. So someone else we talk about in the podcast and that I wanted to read from today is Jan Fraser, who I've mentioned many times. She's one of my favorite spiritual teachers. Again, Jan's not a manifesting teacher whatsoever. She's just a great spiritual teacher who talks a lot about facing fear in an intelligent way. This is The Freedom of Being at Ease with What Is. Great cover. And I'll put a link below to this book. If you don't have it, it's a great book. I'm just going to read from a section here. I don't think I've read from this section before. Anyway, it's going to underscore what we're talking about in this rambling car video with the leaf blowers going in the background. The insanity of fear. Chances are, if you're aware of feeling fearful, it's not in response to an actual immediate threat. It's in response to something you're thinking about. If you're feeling afraid, it's likely there's nothing to be afraid of in this moment. What a radical proposition this is. It surely flies in the face of what you've supposed. Fear generally appears unavoidable, that is, justified, because it's so all-consuming. And because often, if you look around, you can point to something quote-unquote real that seems to have caused it. But what if it were true that most fear is unnecessary? What if most episodes of fear could be dismantled or fail to start up at all? What would that feel like? How wonderful to have fear be a rare visitor, to have it take hold only at those times when it has a useful function, when it might actually protect you or another. If you can come to see that most fear is in response to a thought, you'll have taken a significant step toward equanimity. If you neglect looking at the anatomy of your own episodes of fear, you'll continue being at its mercy. Key to understanding the anatomy of fear is this: all that will ever be real is now. Again and again, this truth has the power to set you free. Life is the present. The mind will insist that life is also what thought can anticipate or recall, but thought, even quote-unquote true thought, is not life itself. It will always be at a remove because it's an abstracted representation of life. When you're deep in projection, you're missing the now. Thought distracts you from life. How many times must you look at this before it takes you over completely? The present is what's real. Everything else is in the head. What's here, present, immediate. So that gives us a kind of a different perspective and way of looking at fear, doesn't it? And again, my podcast, I'll link below to it. We go over this all the time because this is my own personal approach that has worked very well for me over the years, is looking at the present moment and realizing that's all that's real. But when we do that, we realize how much bullshit we superimpose over our mind a lot of the time. And our imagination, I feel like, tends to work well when we feel relaxed and present. Then it kind of just flows naturally, does it not? But when we're trying to, quote unquote, manifest something by thinking about it and using our thinking, overthinking, it doesn't tend to work that well, does it? And this is also why things tend to work out in life when we just become present more, become aware that we're just here right now and present more of the time. So yeah, variability, not looking at these ideas about feeling better and manifesting a better life just from a very limited perspective, from a more open perspective, and looking at different teachers and ways of applying it, like Jan Frazier, one of the just wonderful spiritual teachers in modern American times, or someone like Dale Carnegie and How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Different perspectives, not just manifesting perspectives, can be very helpful. And for me personally, like I said, so much of it just comes back to looking at fear and then realizing, even if I feel fearful, even if fearful thoughts are there, I'm here right now. And that in and of itself really is, in its own way, complete salvation. I hope this was helpful.